This new Star Wars game, open world Star Wars game. I did not know they were coming out with a new one. This is by Force Gaming, and I'm pretty sure Asmon's probably going to react to this, but he hasn't yet, so I'm just going to watch it here. And let's take a look.
As you may or may not know, the past 10 years of Star Wars games have been under the reins of EA. They signed a decade-long deal with Disney back in 2013, and since then have made a handful of titles with varying degrees of success. Honestly, I really enjoyed the first Battlefront, and Jedi Fallen Order was frankly pretty amazing.
I really liked it.
Although let us not forget the debacle that was the launch of Battlefront 2, specifically the massive amounts of pushback they got, well deserved, due to the game's loot boxes and monetization, so much so that they were getting threats from various governmental agencies across the world. It's basically what kicked off the trend back away from loot boxes in a majority of AAA games. But hey, whatever your thoughts on EA's output of Star Wars titles over these past 10 years, their exclusivity comes to an end in 2023. And with this, we've got a slew of new developers taking a crack at the franchise. EA is still in the mix with a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order called Jedi Survivor.
And that looks really good.
Respawn working on both a Star Wars first-person shooter and a Star Wars strategy game. But then we've also got Quantic Dreams making Eclipse, a story-driven action-adventure game. Then there is a Knights of the Old Republic remake coming from Saber Interactive, and a narrative-driven adventure from Skydance. And last,
I didn't know about any of those other than
an open-world Star Wars game from Ubisoft Massive. Now, Massive is a branch of Ubisoft best known for creating the Division games. They're also quite a large
really like the Division, so
800 developers last I checked. And while Division 2 didn't hook me personally, I played the heck out of the original game. It is one of my favorite open shared world games in the past decade, frankly. The world that they built, the killer atmosphere of an apocalypse in the middle of New York City during a blizzard, snowstorms, all of that just came together for a really unique experience. The mixture of PvE and PvP elements within the Dark Zone, it just ended up
the Dark Zone was really fun.
Creating a very memorable gaming time for me personally. I have very, very fond recollection.
I think that's where Tarkov got their idea of Extraction from.
So to hear that they are the ones working on the first open world Star Wars game since, I guess, Star Wars The Old Republic, you might throw in the mix, I'm really interested. So today what I want to do is go over everything we know about the game. This is going to include the official reveal, interviews, various
Does it have any gameplay, man?
As well as a few leaks here and there, some really interesting ones quite recently, and then a little bit of guesswork and speculation based on the developer, based on what we've heard about the game, and what I think that might end up meaning.
Sounds like
let's get a brief look.
I'll be honest, it sounds like we have almost nothing on the game. So, I mean, that's kind of disappointing. I mean, it's expected. Like, I didn't hear anything about this, so I didn't really think there would be, like, much on it. I thought maybe they released like a gameplay trailer or something.
Today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Star Trek Fleet Command, a free-to-play MMO where you take on the role of commander of a starbase on the edge of civilized space. You can recruit iconic officers like James T. Kirk, Spock, and Nero, and build powerful ships including the Enterprise, the Romulan Warbird, and the Klingon Bird of Prey. The game combines strategy, management, and collection elements while delivering a new experience and story in the Star Trek universe. With the galaxy on the brink of war as Federation, Klingon, and Romulan forces vie for control of the Alpha and Beta quadrants, you must discover an ancient secret to tip the scales of power. You'll forge alliances, defeat enemies, and build an epic fleet to dominate the galaxy. To join the millions of players and check out Star Trek Fleet Command yourself, just use my link in the description below to download the game via the Amazon App Store, which also
sorry, Force, that does not look like a game for me.
It's a bit of a cheeky sponsor for a Star Wars video, but let's get into the details. I want to talk about what we know about the game, starting with the official reveal. The game's development was revealed in January 2021 when Ubisoft announced it was collaborating with Disney on a new story-driven open-world game set in the Star Wars galaxy. Of this, they said, headed by Massive Entertainment, the project gathers some of the most experienced talents in the video games industry and will make the most of Massive's innovative spirit and cutting-edge technologies, including the Snowdrop engine, to deliver a groundbreaking Star Wars adventure. Snowdrop, of course, being Ubisoft's proprietary engine used most notably in the creation of the Division games, but also on Mario Rabbids, the upcoming Settlers, and the currently in development Splinter Cell and Avatar games. I remember when we first got that big reveal for the first Division game and just how amazing graphically that ended up looking. Now, as we found out, The actual release game didn't quite live up to the target that they had, but nevertheless,
it was still
is
pretty
an
good.
impressive engine. I think the first and second division games do look pretty good, even if they don't look as good as that first initial trailer. It's a pretty impressive engine. Now, shortly after that announcement, Ubisoft News posted a Q&A with members of the development team, much of which was the typical, we're excited to be working on the game, we're all huge fans of Star Wars, and we aim to make something that fans will love. This is what basically any development studio says when they're making a game in a well-established IP. I mean, I believe them. I'm just saying they could all be reading from the same script and just swapping out the IPs. But there were a few other quotes that I do.
I mean, they can't say anything else, otherwise
what they could share with us about the
fan base would tear them apart.
The response was, right now we are in the beginning of our new journey, so we are still working out many of the details. But what we can tell you is that this will be a story-driven open-world game, and I do want to point out what's really notable here is there has been a complete lack of any mention of any sort of multiplayer, although my intuition tells me they will have some sort of multiplayer, some sort of shared world elements, or even multiplayer situations that you can queue up or go into. Definitely does not seem like multiplayer is going to be the focus, like say it has been. The multiplayer shared worlds were a major factor of Division 1 and Division 2. That, so far at this stage in development, from what they've shared, seems like it might not be the case. They went on to say this will be a departure from the world.
As long as they focus on making the game as good as it can be, and then worrying about multiplayer after, like that to me would be better.
The Division, both I and the team at Massive are very excited to start crafting this new experience. We truly look forward to create.
Because like the solo experience is going to be the main experience that people are going to have with the game. So if they can make that really solid, it will make even more people interested in the multiplayer if they want to tack that on after.
Something totally different from what we've done.
Which I know a lot of people don't like hearing, but it's just the truth.
In the past, while upping the bar for the industry. That distinction might even further reinforce the idea that there may not be any shared world stuff. This could potentially be an entirely single player game. If nothing else, my hope is that they at the very least have some multiplayer modes, some sections.
I don't see them making it completely single player, because it's like the Division is not single player at all. Like I can see it making it co-op, maybe not PvP.
Of the game that are multiplayer, or if nothing else, they have some sort of co-op. I think that would be really cool. The next bit I want to mention here was in response to the following question: what kind of experience will it bring to the Star Wars galaxy? In which they said, first, we want to make a unique game in the saga with a captivating story and set of characters that players can relate and connect to. We want to take what is familiar and resonant about.
See, I really actually prefer this when they just do their own thing versus trying to get characters. Because if you mess the character up, like everyone's going to be mad at you. But if it's a new character, if it kind of sucks, you know, it's not that big of a deal.
Star Wars and tell the stories of new.
It's not like you ruined a beloved character.
Motivations and stakes. Second, and one of the reasons we were entrusted with this game is to make the most of the technology to bring innovation to the gameplay and world building. So this raises some interesting questions about what particular era of Star Wars the game might be set in. I know there are people who are very much so fans of particular chapters of the long and storied history of the Star Wars universe. Me personally, I can take them or leave them, wherever they decide to place it. I just think Star Wars and that universe as a setting is a cool and interesting one, wherever that ends up being. But yes, it doesn't seem like we will be playing as pre-established characters, or at the very least there will be a focus on new characters, new stories within the world of Star Wars. They then said that with the new Star Wars game, they are hoping to appeal to both lifelong and new fans of their.
You know what's funny is that the Star Wars MMO, I think that if they didn't focus so much on the like voice acting and everything, and they made the combat just way better than what it is, I think that game would still be like it's still around, obviously, but I don't think it got the success that it should have for being a Star Wars game. Like that game should have blown the hell up. Like Star Wars is such a huge IP, so it's like, if they made the combat actually feel really good, like the story I think is actually okay, like it's not terrible. Some of them are pretty good, but also like instead of having it where each character has their own story, which I thought was interesting, don't get me wrong, but I think having but the problem is like some of them were really good while others were just really bad. So it's like, what happens if you're a new player and you play on the ones that are really bad? you're more likely just going to quit the game, not even realizing you just chose a class with a terrible story. So instead, they should have done similar to Final Fantasy and just having like this main overarching story, and maybe like how Warcraft does and Final Fantasy does it. Like there are like quests for your class, but like the main story is like the highlight.
Franchise, saying that they are working closely with Lucasfilms to deliver quality.
That way, if your story sucks with your class, at least the main story was really cool, like good, or cool would be better in Star Wars.
Authenticity, and that their engine
I feel like my voice is dying on me, man.
Cutting-edge technology and stay
this is weird. I haven't really spoken.
Innovation. In other words, they say the game should look pretty. Yes, the Division 1 and 2 do look pretty, even if they don't.
The graphics are going to be great. That's basically what they're saying.
Basically, that is everything that Ubisoft
has
officially gone on record to say about this game. Not a lot of specifics and details have been made public. However, thanks to a recent article over on Insider Gaming, they state that according to sources familiar with the project, it will boast a fully open, seamless universe akin to that found in No Man's Sky. In the game, players will be able to jump between systems, immersing themselves in a vast galaxy, bursting at the seams
would be crazy.
At the heart of the game sits an in-depth, lengthy story driven by a fully customizable character that walks a path chosen by the gamer. There is a lot to unpack there. Open world.
That's way too overambitious. That's probably like let's be fair. How long did New World take to achieve that? Like a decade, maybe more?
Exploring a galaxy, traveling between planets seamlessly in a spaceship, flying around, going from one planet to the next, and character creator, where you are constructing your own character and choosing your path, assuming light side versus dark side here. That is quite a premise, it's quite a bit of information to get. Now, keep in mind, this is just a rumor. Insider.
It's quite overambitious, to be fair. Like, not the other parts, but like the whole like universe part. Like there's multiple worlds, like, and you're trying to make each world actually, you know, fun. Like not super boring.
Gaming is known to share insider trade.
I'm assuming like Mass Effect is what they're going to do,
but undisclosed sources. So we can't and likely won't know for certain if any of this is true until we get official word from Ubisoft themselves. However,
and I doubt anything is set in stone other than it being open world.
Well known, and from what I've been seen following the site, fairly reputable. Like they have been accurate, and a lot of what they've reported on has turned out to be true. So we'll remain suspicious. We will take this with a grain of salt. We don't know for certain, but I am inclined to believe this reporting, especially when you consider Ubisoft has for some time now been working on a game with basically features and a description very similar to what's being discussed here. I am, of course, talking about Beyond Good and Evil 2. They've got gameplay.
I do wonder if they're gonna take after Mass Effect. Like, I think, like, especially if they focus on Mass Effect 2, which to me is like the best game in that series. So yeah, I mean, that would be really interesting.
This game video,
because it has multiple worlds. It's very story driven, other than being an open seamless world.
Videos from like 5 years ago that show exactly what's being talked about here. Open world gameplay on massive planets, you getting into ships, taking off, flying into outer space.
Oh, Beyond Good and Evil.
Planets.
Like, I forgot about this.
What Beyond Good and Evil 2 has been doing and what Ubisoft has showcased for several years. Now, I should note that Beyond Good and Evil 2 is being developed by Ubisoft Montpellier, based out of France, and it's being made with the Voyager engine. So it is a different studio working with a different engine, but it is still Ubisoft, and it's reasonable to consider that if they could share some of this tech, they might do so. Now, what I'm not certain about is how much of this stuff is transferable between engines. But if it were, this could be somewhat akin to what we'll be getting with the open world Star Wars game, should these leaks and these rumors turn out to be true. Now, this also seems a little extra probable.
Like, I don't even think they have a release date yet for Beyond Good and Evil. Like, that game's been in development for a while.
Updates for Beyond Good and Evil 2. The game does appear to be in rather significant development hell. It is now, I think, currently the longest development cycles of any big AAA game in history, beating out Duke Nukem Forever. And there's been reports from last November claiming that the game was completely rebooted just a few years ago and is still, as far as Ubisoft is concerned, in early development. So, should the tech tech be transferable between engines, if they can take what's been done with Beyond Good and Evil 2 and the Voyager engine and bring that over to the Snowdrop engine for this open world Star Wars game, there's a lot of potential there, and Ubisoft has already had the foundation built for this open world, galaxy, solar system spanning exploration. All of that said, here's what I think a Massive's open world Star Wars game could potentially be like, all right? I'm envisioning having multiple solar systems, of course, within a galaxy, multiple planets in each of those solar systems, with those planets having some procedural landscape generation. Think the various biomes, the hills, the forests, the mountains, the deserts, kind of placed and crafted procedurally with very constructed handcrafted layers on top of that. We're talking highly detailed locations with cities, towns, and outposts.
See, I don't think they should go the New World route. Just go, not New World, No Man's Sky route. Because No Man's Sky, like a lot of those planets are just plain boring. Like, I think honestly they should go the Mass Effect route, where it's like you have access to like maybe 1 to 2 places on that world. I don't know. Obviously, it may not feel as big and open world-ish, but at the same time, it's just not filled with a bunch of nothing.
Ancient ruins, and then parts of the wilderness. There will certainly be unique points of interest within various distinct landmarks to discover and places to explore. I think especially because Ubisoft Massive, with their games, with the Division 1 and 2 in particular, they've done such a great job with their attention to detail, essentially recreating within these game worlds entire cities, the city of New York and DC. Very, very good attention to detail, a lot of fine granular stuff. I don't think they're going to completely abandon it. And also keep in mind, when I talk about like procedural landscape generation, I don't mean like planets are going to be different for everyone who plays it. I mean, in the process of developing it, they use procedural stuff to build out some of the things, the density. And
I think most games do that already, Force. Like, I don't think that's anything new.
The organization of the trees and the hills and the mountains and all that stuff. It's actually not that uncommon of a practice. And as far as I'm aware, Ubisoft has used stuff like that for some of the recent
a lot of open world games do it,
that have had just such massive landscapes with the use of procedural generation to help craft some of the landscape. I'm really specifically talking about the landscape and not the bespoke cities and towns and dungeons and various things and points of interest. That will all almost certainly be handcrafted. From there, you're on a
would
planet,
hope so.
you got this stuff, you get these points of interest. I assume you're going to be able to take off in some spaceship, and then while in orbit and then going out into space, fly between the planets. In the process of doing so, I expect there will be some space combat. We've seen great examples of this with some of EA's offerings, specifically in Battlefront, and then their Squadron spin-off. Space combat makes a lot of sense. I assume it'll be in this game as well. And then a la Beyond Good and Evil 2, or as referenced here in the leak, No Man's Sky, you'll choose a planet to land onto. What I don't know is if you can land anywhere on these planets, or if you pick a planet to land to and then you go to like a designated port and then can go out on foot from there. There is, of course, a lot of this is all just speculation. This is entirely,
exactly.
I'm imagining this picture in my head, but based on the leak,
because we don't have anything
we know about Ubisoft's past with Beyond Good and Evil 2, and of course the developer Massive, I think it is going to be a combination of those things. Anyways, whole lot of speculation, just kind of daydreaming at this point, mainly because there's a lot of potential here, and it's really exciting to me. Beyond just the concept of a brand new open world Star Wars game, that is exciting in and of itself. My main source of excitement is that it's being developed by Ubisoft Massive. Ubisoft does get a lot of heat, much of which is justified, but in spite of a lot of the gripes people have, such as their formulaic design, the content bloat, and the fact that, many of their games feel like the games industry equivalent of fast food. At the same time, there have been a ton of Ubisoft games that I've played in the past 10 or 15 years that I've really enjoyed and sunk a ton of time into. These include For Honor, Rainbow Six Siege. When that came out, I played it nonstop for months. Various Assassin's Creed titles.
Rainbow Six Siege took a huge portion of my life for I think almost a full year.
Especially the recent offerings, Origins and Odyssey. I loved them both. Various Far Cry games, and most of all, The Division. I just can't say it enough how much I enjoyed that original game. It was so immersive. It was such a cool setting. New York, post-apocalypse, Christmas time with...
I mean, I like Division 2 as well, but I think because Division 1 was so new for it,
snowstorms,
or at least for me, I enjoyed it more.
Right, if you consider the context of what's going on, but it also brought this certain kind of cozy, comfy feeling. Maybe that's because I grew up in the north. I like the winter. I like snowstorms. The idea of a snow day, it's a cozy feeling that comes.
I was like the opposite for me. I grew up in a desert, so I don't know if that is why. Because I like everything about it as well, but it's definitely not like comforting. I think it just looks cool.
Comes to me personally, but I loved the experience of being in that world. I think Massive did a fantastic job. It was a great game, very fond memories, and I am very hopeful because they're the ones heading this game. I'd also like to just quickly touch on some of the job postings that came up that I saw have some buzz in online communities. In particular, there was one where Massive was looking for a monetization specialist for the game, which would contribute to the financial success of our games, shaping strategies to boost profitability while respecting our players and the essence of each game. I think people would take umbrage with that last half of that sentence there. I bring this up because there seem to be in some spaces.
I mean, are they gonna make it free to play? I mean, to be fair, Ubisoft is known for like monetizing single player games, so I really don't know.
Some surprise or even like outrage that they were hiring a monetization specialist. Let me break the illusion here. They're going to monetize the heck out of this. It is a Ubisoft game, and that's probably one of the biggest things that people have gripes with nowadays. They are just part of the wave, the modern day trend of heavy monetization from various sides of the game. You're purchasing the game, you're purchasing cosmetics, you're purchasing various features, you're unlocking characters, you're buying DLC, you've got the in-game cash shop with some possibility of convenience things. It is just these games, and Ubisoft in particular, as with again a lot of these big developers. And
like I think Ubisoft among the Western developers has monetized their game probably the most, other than like among the non-sporting games. Like obviously sports games are notorious for being absolute like gambling holes. So, but like in terms of single player games, because that's what I think they mostly release, like they monetize the hell out of it.
Publishers, lots of monetization
like,
from lots of
as bad as Eastern companies.
But it's also like it's not a shock to me that Massive is hiring a monetization specialist. But if you can still enjoy those games despite that,
and I think it's fine if they want to get a specialist, because it's like at least get someone who kind of knows what they're doing and isn't gonna like make the player super frustrated. Like I think it really proved it with the Battlefront game. Like you need someone who understands there is a limit to what you can put players through,
which is what I try to do with any AAA games nowadays. I do think there's so much potential. It's why I'm making this video. It is an exciting premise for a game. Open world Star Wars.
That Jedi game was actually really fun.
When are we going to get to play it? Well, probably not anytime soon. During an earnings call back.
Look at freaking Beyond Good and Evil, whatever it's called. Like, dude, that game has been in development for so long. Like, hopefully freaking this new game does not suffer from that. But man, I don't know.
Back in February 2021, Ubisoft said the game was still in the early stages of development. Now, recently, their creative director tweeted out that 2023 was going to be a huge year for them.
That's probably like eventually, I would say around maybe October is when they're going to be releasing like actual gameplay footage.
With an image of the massively Star Wars open world logo. A lot of people jumped on this thinking the game is going to be releasing this.
No, I think they're just going to release the trailer
year, but it's been pretty much confirmed that's not happening. It is not happening, because he later added below the tweet, "This seems to have sparked quite some interest. To be clear, I meant that 2023 will be huge for our teams building the game." And then in parentheses, "which you could be a part of." For official news, keep an eye out on Ubisoft. They're just saying they're making big strides on the game this year. It's definitely not launching as of now. Of course, we also know that they've got their Avatar game that is scheduled for 2023. No way they released two big, huge IP open world games.
I wonder how that one's going to play out.
I think if anything, though, there is a pretty good chance that we get the reveal with some sort of a trailer, maybe not gameplay, but cinematic at the very least. And the game has
that's what I was thinking as well.
Like quite a bit of progress.
I think gameplay's like a good chance of it.
When they said it was in early development,
not a lot of it.
Less than a month ago, on December 16th, Massive tweeted out that they were looking for playtesters for the game, specifically looking for people who reside in Sweden to test the game internally at their studio.
That sucks.
So they're at the point of doing internal playtesting, pulling in
then again, I don't really
sources.
like
that means the
playing
game
alpha games.
I don't know where we classify that in the alpha to beta timeline, but nevertheless, people are testing the game. 2023, I expect we get an announcement. We get some sort of like real official reveal, maybe with a full name, because right now it's just called the Open World Star Wars game. It's going to have a name that's not that. And yeah, I would love to see some gameplay, but I'm not expecting it this year. If I were to throw a guess out there, 2024, late 2024, early 2025. That's the ballpark that I would put this game in. But regardless, a lot of potential
for
here.
the release, not for like trailers, at least to me.
Pretty exciting.
Unless it falls into development hell like the other game, in which case, who knows?
Stuff, even with what little we know so far, just the premise is enough alone to keep my interest peaked. So as more details and info comes out, stay tuned. I will be certain to update you. Yeah, that does it for me today. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.
Why?
As you
great video, Force Gaming. Like, I didn't hear anything about this. He's the first one I've heard. But I mean, to be fair, there's really not much to say about this right now.